Usually, when I make these film noir videos, I'm presenting you with a selection of underrated and overlooked films that deserve a wider audience. But in this video, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to share some of my favorite noir films, movies that I revisit over and over again. Some of them have been in my life since I was 11 years old, and they're like old friends. You could call them my comfort crime films.
You mean this has been going on for years and I didn't know about it?
I've already spent time talking about some of my favorites in other videos like Leave Her to Heaven, Naked Alibi, The Breaking Point, and Nightmare Alley. So if you haven't seen those or any of my other noir videos, I'll link them in a playlist in the description below, and also in the pinned comment. So get ready for a lot of films, a lot of information, a little bit of chaos.
Okay.
So here are some of my favorite noir films in no particular order, and there are no rankings because I just can't do rankings. I watch too many movies and my leaderboard changes all the time. So let's jump right in and start with Dick Powell in 1948's Pitfall. Directed by Andre de Toth, Powell plays John Forbes, a middle-aged insurance executive. But John is dissatisfied with his mundane life, and he's really suffering from the type of suburban malaise that is usually reserved for the mid-century ladies.
Sometimes I get to feel like a wheel within a wheel within a wheel.
You and 50 million others.
So one day, John's assigned to investigate an insurance claim made by Mona Stewart, played by the sultry, vixen-voiced Elizabeth Scott.
Are you a prowler or do you have a search warrant?
At first, John is intrigued by Mona. Then John becomes infatuated with her and seeking the thrill he feels is missing from his everyday life. But there's a rival for his affections who just can't take no for an answer. And all this jealousy sparks a dangerous spiraling of events. Pitfall is set in Los Angeles, and Los Angeles' contrasting landscapes from glamorous Hollywood mansions to gritty back alleys. It's an ideal setting for the 1940s and 50s film noir. Its contrast mirrors the themes of noir itself, which often explores the duality of human nature and the clash between light and dark. This is on display in lots of great classic LA films, like Crime Wave, where boyfriend of the channel Sterling Hayden plays a cop, dead set on building a case against an innocent Gene Nelson.
But when the light goes down and the city is dark, its back streets and brooding alleys become a jungle.
And The Essentials, Sunset Boulevard, In a Lonely Place.
You know Dix didn't do it. You saw him after the girl left.
And Double Indemnity.
I'm Walter Nett, Pacific All Risk.
There's also lesser-known films like Sam Fuller's The Crimson Kimono.
The sensational murder of Sugar Torch, burlesque queen, triggers a manhunt in the teeming streets of Little Tokyo in Los Angeles.
These all span the LA cityscape. So there's a nice mix of glitz and glamour and grit and grime, all topped with a heavy dose of murder, madness, and mayhem. 1949's act of violence also shows off this contrast, as the story moves from an idyllic and peaceful small California town to the seedy side of Los Angeles. Directed by Fred Zinnemann, and starring Robert Ryan, Van Heflin, Janet Leigh, and Mary Astor in a fantastic character role. I mean, when Mary Astor comes on screen, she's really stealing all the scenes from that point on. The movie revolves around Van Heflin's Frank, a World War II veteran who appears to have a successful life with a loving wife and a very comfortable existence. However, this facade is shattered when Joe, a fellow veteran played by Robert Ryan, arrives in town seeking revenge, because Frank has a secret that only Joe knows. And the idea of who is the bad guy starts to sit in a very gray area. Act of violence deals with themes of war trauma and the psychological scars carried by veterans, and it explores guilt and the moral dilemmas that can haunt individuals long after the war is over. Coming right on the heels of World War II, the public really wasn't ready for it, and it wasn't a very big moneymaker. But it's one of my favorites.
Listen, Frankie, boy, if you've got money, nothing can be too bad.
New York also provides a perfect canvas for filmmakers to weave tales of crime, passion, and moral ambiguity. Lots of my favorite New York set noirs portray the city in such a way that it becomes another character in the story, like the wonderfully sleazy Sweet Smell of Success with Burt Lancaster and Tony Curtis. Cinematographer James Wong Howe makes mid-century New York look both glamorous and seedy, but always exciting.
Match me, Sidney.
And John Garfield's Force of Evil gives us a stark and bleak Manhattan. And then there's The Naked City.
There are 8 million stories in The Naked City.
Directed by Jules Dassin, The Naked City is a film that revolutionized the crime genre. The Naked City introduced a documentary-style approach, and it incorporated heavy location shooting. Starring Barry Fitzgerald, Howard Duff, and Don Taylor, The Naked City focuses on the police hunt for the killer of an ex-model. And its step-by-step investigation and procedural work took viewers across contemporary New York City. It's really a time capsule, a wonderful document of a landscape that just doesn't exist anymore. The use of natural lighting and non-professional actors also contributed to this very realistic feel. So we move from the authenticity of The Naked City to 99 River Street. Okay, it's not filmed on location, but it's set in New York City, and it takes place over one long night. This one has John Payne playing a washed-up former boxing champ, Ernie Driscoll. Now he's a struggling New York City cab driver whose wife, Pauline, is tired of living like a bum. Pauline has been carrying on with a small-time jewel thief. Okay, Pauline, honey, that's not a come-up or even a lateral move. Ernie's life takes a dramatic twist when he finds Pauline murdered, and he becomes the prime suspect in the investigation. Determined to prove his innocence, Ernie, with the help of an aspiring actress played by Evelyn Keyes, tried to survive the night and catch a killer. Director Phil Carson keeps the plot twists and action coming at a breakneck pace. And there's a couple of twists here that you will see coming, but there's a couple that you won't. I like John Payne. He and Dick Powell sort of lost their sweet, charming musical comedy personas that they had, and post-war shifted into these more hard-boiled roles. I must tell you that Bosley Crowther dismissed 99 River Street, calling it a tasteless melodrama peopled with unpleasant hoods, two-timing blondes, and lots of sequences that purport to be everyday life in the underworld. Okay, excuse me, Bosley, but those are actually excellent selling points and exactly what I want in my post-war crime movies. Another film Bosley wasn't so keen on, but that I totally am, is 1950's Born to be Bad, starring Joan Fontaine, Robert Ryan, Zachary Scott, and Joan Leslie. Directed by Nicholas Ray, who also directed 3 of my other favorites, In a Lonely Place, They Live by Night, and On Dangerous Ground. Future me here editing this video, and I'm about to go off on a little Robert Ryan tangent, so hold on for a second. Those first 30 to 45 minutes of On Dangerous Ground, absolutely fantastic. Crossfire, the setup, Beware My Lovely, Odds Against Tomorrow, Clash by Night. Oh, and let's not forget The Woman on the Beach. It's just so surreal. There's an opening sequence. If you haven't seen it, you've got to watch it for that opening dream sequence alone. Beautiful, just haunting and beautiful. But you know what? Let's rein it in. I gotta bring it back to Born to be Bad.
I'm Christabel Kane.
Joan Fontaine as the scheming Christabel Kane. A young woman who manipulates every single person around her. The lies come fast and easy to Christabel, and she can conveniently stretch the truth to about as thin as it can go.
When Uncle John came up to Santa Flora, he talked about a party or something, and I understood from Aunt Clara I was to come the day after. Party was last night, so
But the party's tonight.
Oh.
She manipulates her way into a friendship with Joan Leslie's Donna. She steals Donna's fiancé.
I can just hear you being so helpful and so helpless, helping to mess up people's lives for your own selfish purposes.
She continuously leads on Robert Ryan. She's a driven social climber. And I'm not the only one who loves this film. Carol Burnett does too.
And I know one other thing, Christina Bell. Christina Bell only looks out for Christina Bell and only Christina Bell.
So Born to be Bad has a kind of love rectangle that gets pretty intense. But I also got to recommend the love triangle that is Fritz Lang's Human Desire, that puts a very vulnerable and desperate Gloria Graham between Glenn Ford and her brutish husband, played by Broderick Crawford, with tragic results. And then there's, of course, The Postman Always Rings Twice. Very steamy love triangle that ends in murder and twists of fate. But of course, there's one love triangle to rule them all, and that is Gilda.
Me?
A love triangle for the ages. This film is so steeped in sex and desire and dysfunction. How can you not love it?
Hate is a very exciting emotion. Haven't you noticed?
Directed by Charles Vidor and starring Rita Hayworth, Glenn Ford, and George McCready. Does the plot make 100% sense when you really think about it? I mean, you've got the tungsten and you've got the Nazis. It's very notorious light, I would say. But forget all that. It's the love affair and the lengths to which people will go for love, lust, possession, and revenge. The tumultuous love affair is marked by a toxic combination of passion and control and betrayal. I know it all by heart. Another movie that I can quote is Martha Ivers. That's one of the first noir films I ever saw. I also can't leave out No Man of Her Own, Sorry Wrong Number, and Crime of Passion. And Fritz Lang's Clash by Night, but I've already talked about that. And Lang also directed some of my other favorites, While the City Sleeps.
Mr. Unknown, you will not for very long remain unknown.
The Blue Gardenia, The House by the River, and Beyond a Reasonable Doubt. I don't know how many people have seen Beyond a Reasonable Doubt, but it's really good. It's got Dana Andrews as a novelist who conspires to frame himself for the murder of a dancer. It's a very complex scheme, but the goal is to show the injustices of the legal system and capital punishment. And the entire plan goes sideways in the most spectacular ways. Another film I really love is John Hodiak as the war veteran with amnesia who must piece together his forgotten life in Joe Mankiewicz's Somewhere in the Night. I love John Hodiak. He's in a lot of supporting roles, but here he gets the lead and he gets to really shine. So let's hit some of the essentials. Laura. Amazing, lush, beautiful, classic theme. And the iconic story of the cop in love with the dead girl. Shadow of a Doubt. Hitchcock bringing the menace to the small town by way of the serial killer uncle. Phantom Lady. Missing Woman, Strange Hat. Have you ever been as obsessed with a hat after watching this movie? Probably not. Out of the Past. Kathy Moffat is my femme fatale MVP. Okay, I'm sure the second I hit publish on this, I will probably remember 20 more films that I wish I'd added. Be sure to check the description box below this video for links to some of my favorites that you can watch for free. There are 8 million stories in the cinema cities. This has been one.